Have you ever been underestimated simply because of how you look? Today, we're diving into a story that's not just about power or status, but about the courage to stand tall against deeply rooted bias. This is the story of Charlotte Bennett, a woman who stepped into an exclusive airline lounge and left behind not only a striking example of dignity, but also a vision for real change in a long-standing, inequitable industry. But before we dive into Charlotte's inspiring journey, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. If you enjoy stories of courage and justice, make sure to hit that like button, share this video, and subscribe to our channel for more powerful tales. Your support helps us reach more people with these extraordinary narratives. The morning of the encounter the sun was rising, bathing the private terminal in a soft, golden glow. Light streamed through the wide glass windows, dancing on the polished marble floors, while the lounge buzzed with a quiet hum of exclusivity. It was a place meant for a privileged few, a sanctuary for those who had seemingly earned their way into the world of private jets and unparalleled service. Charlotte stepped through the sleek glass doors, her heels clicking softly against the floor. Her entrance was understated, yet it carried an undeniable energy. She exuded a confidence that demanded attention, though she didn't actively seek it. Charlotte, in her early 40s, was a vision of quiet elegance. She wore a tailored navy blue blazer paired with a crisp white blouse and trousers that spoke of effortless sophistication. Her soft, natural waves framed her face, a face that was calm, poised, and hinted at a quiet strength earned from countless battles fought and won in spaces where she was often underestimated. Her almond-shaped eyes, intelligent and observant, scanned the room briefly as she carried a leather travel bag, the kind that spoke of practicality and taste. A subtle diamond bracelet glimmered under her sleeve, not ostentatious, just enough to suggest a life of quiet privilege, a life built on hard work and merit. As she moved toward a seating area by the window, a faint murmur spread through the lounge. Heads turned, some curious, some calculating. It wasn't unusual for Charlotte to notice this reaction. She had grown used to the silent stares and hushed whispers, though they still carried an air of discomfort. She ignored them, her steps measured and steady, and settled into a chair near the window. For a moment, she allowed herself the luxury of admiring the view. Outside, the azure sky served as a perfect backdrop to the pristine white jets gleaming on the tarmac. This was not just another flight for Charlotte. It was the culmination of years of relentless effort, breaking barriers, and standing firm in the face of doubt and prejudice. Every seat she occupied in spaces like this had been earned through grit and determination. This trip wasn't merely about convenience or luxury. It was a testament to her journey, her triumphs, and her refusal to be sidelined. Yet, despite her quiet demeanor, the tension in the room was palpable. Subtle glances turned into stolen stares. Conversations shifted to hushed tones. Across the room, a woman in a pearl necklace whispered something to her companion, her gaze darting toward Charlotte. Charlotte sat with her hands folded in her lap, her polished nails gleaming faintly in the sunlight. Her expression remained composed, her posture perfect, yet, deep inside, she felt the familiar flicker of irritation. She had seen this play out too many times, a silent yet sharp reminder that no matter how far she had come, some people would always see her through the lens of their biases. Her phone buzzed softly, breaking her thoughts. A message from her assistant appeared on the screen, confirming the meeting awaiting her at her destination. She allowed herself a small smile. The irony was not lost on her. The very people who doubted her now would soon be seeking her attention, their attitudes shifting when they realized who she truly was. Tucking the phone back into her bag, she adjusted her blazer, her gaze steady and unwavering. The flight attendant's first challenge ***. Moments later, a flight attendant emerged from the reception area. She was a tall, blonde woman in her mid-30s, her uniform immaculate and her demeanor professional, at least on the surface. But when her eyes landed on Charlotte, a flicker of something, surprise, maybe disbelief, crossed her face. Though fleeting, it was unmistakable. The attendant's practiced smile returned quickly, though it now seemed a little too tight, a little too forced. Approaching Charlotte, she spoke in a tone that was overly polite, almost patronizing. "Good morning, ma'am. May I assist you with something?" Charlotte looked up, meeting the woman's gaze with calm composure. Her voice was firm but polite. "I'm fine, thank you." The attendant hesitated, her smile faltering just slightly before she continued, "Are you waiting for someone? Or perhaps you're looking for the commercial terminal?" The question hung in the air, its implication clear. Charlotte's jaw tightened ever so slightly, but her expression remained neutral. She leaned back in her chair, her gaze steady. "No," she replied evenly. "I'm exactly where I need to be." The attendant's brows knitted together for a brief moment before she nodded, though her expression betrayed her discomfort. "Of course," she said, though her tone suggested doubt. "If you need any assistance, please let me know." As the attendant walked away, Charlotte's gaze followed her. Her mind was already calculating the significance of the exchange. It was a small moment, one that could be brushed off as insignificant by many. But Charlotte knew better. She had seen this story unfold too many times. This was only the beginning. The minutes ticked by in the lounge, stretching out like hours. The quiet hum of whispered conversations and the soft clinking of coffee cups filled the air. Charlotte remained seated by the window, her posture composed, her gaze steady as she stared out at the runway. The tension in the room, however, was becoming harder to ignore. From the corner of her eye, she noticed the flight attendant from earlier. Her name tag read Emily, hovering near the reception desk. Emily was talking in hushed tones with a younger colleague, a timid-looking woman who seemed hesitant to meet Charlotte's gaze. Their exchange was brief but telling. Emily's body language, stiff posture, quick glances toward Charlotte, and subtle gestures betrayed her unease. Charlotte pretended not to notice. Instead, she adjusted the diamond bracelet on her wrist, her movements calm and deliberate. But inwardly, she was already preparing herself. She had seen this pattern before. Suspicion, quiet judgment, and eventually confrontation. It was an exhausting cycle, one she had endured too many times in her life. Emily, after what appeared to be a moment of deliberation, seemed to reach a decision. Straightening her blazer and smoothing her skirt, she squared her shoulders and walked purposefully toward Charlotte. Her heels clicked sharply against the marble floor, the sound cutting through the quiet murmur of the lounge. "Excuse me, ma'am," Emily began, her voice overly sweet, almost saccharine. It was the kind of tone people used when they were trying to mask condescension with politeness. Charlotte looked up from her phone, her expression neutral. "Yes," she said simply. Emily clasped her hands in front of her, the practiced smile still firmly in place. "I just wanted to confirm. You're here for the 11:30 flight, correct?" Charlotte's gaze didn't waver. "That's correct," she replied, her tone calm and measured. Emily hesitated, her practiced demeanor faltering for just a moment. "Ah, I see," she said, her voice light but with an edge of uncertainty. "I just wanted to let you know that this particular flight is a private charter. It's typically reserved for our more frequent travelers." There it was, the subtle accusation wrapped in polite words. The implication was clear. Someone like Charlotte didn't belong here. Charlotte tilted her head slightly, her dark eyes narrowing just a fraction. Her voice remained steady as she responded. "I'm well aware," she said. "Is there an issue with my ticket?" Emily's composure cracked ever so slightly. She seemed momentarily flustered, but she quickly recovered, shaking her head. "Oh, no, of course not," she said, though her tone suggested otherwise. "I just wanted to make sure everything was in order." "Everything is," Charlotte replied, her voice firm but polite. Emily nodded, clearly unsure of how to proceed. "Well, if you need anything, please don't hesitate to let me know," she said before turning and walking back toward the reception desk. Charlotte watched her go, her expression unreadable. She could feel the weight of the stares from other passengers in the lounge. Some were curious, others skeptical, and a few seemed outright disapproving. It was a familiar feeling, one that she had learned to endure with grace. Time moved slowly in the lounge. Emily, now stationed at the reception desk, seemed increasingly agitated. She exchanged more whispers with the younger attendant, her gaze darting toward Charlotte every so often. The younger woman appeared reluctant to engage, her discomfort evident in her body language. Charlotte noticed all of this, though she pretended not to. Instead, she reached for her leather travel bag and pulled out a folder containing documents for the meeting she was headed to. She flipped through the papers, her expression calm and focused, as if the unfolding drama around her didn't exist. But the tension was impossible to ignore. Emily, after another whispered conversation with her colleague, appeared to reach a breaking point. With a sharp inhale, she strode back across the lounge, her heels clicking loudly against the floor. This time, there was no trace of the overly sweet tone she had used earlier. Her approach was more direct, more forceful. "Ma'am," she said, stopping in front of Charlotte's chair. "I'm sorry, but I need to ask you again. Are you certain you're on the correct flight? This lounge is exclusively for passengers on the 11:30 private charter." Charlotte looked up slowly, her expression calm but her eyes sharp. She closed the folder in her lap and set it aside. "I've already told you," she said evenly. "I am on the correct flight. And yes, I belong here." Emily hesitated, clearly caught off guard by Charlotte's unwavering composure. "I'm not trying to imply anything," she said quickly, though her tone suggested otherwise. "It's just that this flight is typically reserved for a certain category of passengers and—" "A certain category?" Charlotte interrupted, her voice cool but firm. "And what category would that be?" Emily opened her mouth as if to respond, but no words came out. She glanced around the lounge, as if searching for support, but the other passengers avoided her gaze. Charlotte leaned back in her chair, her posture relaxed but her presence commanding. "If there's an issue with my ticket," she said, "I suggest you take it up with the airline. Otherwise, I'd appreciate it if you stopped questioning whether I belong here." Emily's face flushed, her confidence faltering. "Of course," she said finally, her voice quieter now. "I'll just double-check everything." She turned and walked away, her steps less confident than before. Charlotte watched her go, her expression calm but her mind racing. She had dealt with moments like this countless times before, but it never got easier. The constant need to prove herself, to justify her presence in spaces where others assumed she didn't belong. It was exhausting. But she wasn't about to back down. Not today. This was only the beginning, and Charlotte knew it. But she also knew something Emily didn't. This lounge, this airline, and this entire situation were about to take a turn no one in the room expected. The tension in the lounge remained palpable as Emily retreated to the reception desk, her earlier confidence visibly shaken. She whispered hurriedly with her colleague, her glances toward Charlotte becoming less subtle. It was clear that Emily was struggling to reconcile the quiet elegance and composure of the woman seated by the window with her own assumptions about who belonged in such a space. Charlotte, meanwhile, maintained her outward calm. Her composed demeanor masked a quiet determination to let the situation play out as it inevitably would. She had faced countless moments like this before. Moments where her presence in a world of privilege and exclusivity was met with skepticism and bias. But she had long since learned to channel her frustration into resolve, to let the whispers and stares fuel her drive rather than diminish her confidence. As Emily continued her nervous exchanges at the reception desk, a new figure entered the lounge. A tall man in his early 50s, impeccably dressed in a tailored suit, walked in with the air of someone who was accustomed to commanding attention. His sharp features and confident stride suggested he was no stranger to high-stakes environments. The man's arrival immediately caught the attention of the lounge staff, including Emily, who hurried over to greet him. The conversation between them was brief, but it was clear that he was someone of importance. After a moment, he nodded and made his way toward Charlotte, his expression warm but professional. "Ms. Bennett," he said as he approached, extending a hand. "It's a pleasure to see you again." Charlotte stood and shook his hand, her smile polite but genuine. "Thank you, Jonathan. I appreciate you meeting me here." The interaction was brief, but it was enough to send a ripple of realization through the room. Emily, still standing near the reception desk, looked on in visible confusion. The man, Jonathan, was not just any passenger. He was the CEO of the airline. Jonathan turned to address the room, his voice firm but calm. "Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to take a moment to introduce you to Charlotte Bennett." Not only is she one of our most valued passengers, but she is also the owner of this airline. The silence that followed his words was deafening. The murmurs that had filled the lounge moments ago were replaced by stunned expressions and wide eyes. Emily's face turned a deep shade of red, her earlier confidence now entirely replaced by embarrassment and regret. Charlotte, ever composed, stepped forward to address the room. "Thank you, Jonathan," she began, her voice calm but commanding. "I don't usually make a point of introducing myself in this way, but I believe today's events warrant a few words." She turned her gaze toward Emily, who looked down at the floor, unable to meet Charlotte's eyes. It's important to recognize that bias, whether conscious or unconscious, has no place in spaces like this. Moments like these serve as a reminder of how much work we still have to do to ensure equality and respect for everyone, regardless of appearance or assumptions. Her words hung in the air, each one deliberate and powerful. The room remained silent, the weight of her message sinking in. Jonathan stepped forward again, addressing both the staff and the passengers. "What happened here today is unacceptable, and it is not reflective of the values we stand for as a company. Effective immediately, we will be implementing mandatory training for all of our staff to address unconscious bias and promote a culture of inclusivity and respect." Charlotte nodded, her expression one of quiet approval. "Thank you, Jonathan. It's a step in the right direction. But change doesn't happen overnight. It requires ongoing effort, accountability, and a willingness to confront uncomfortable truths." Emily, visibly shaken, approached Charlotte hesitantly. "Ms. Bennett," she began, her voice trembling, I want to apologize. I made assumptions that I shouldn't have, and I'm truly sorry." Charlotte studied her for a moment before replying. "Thank you for acknowledging that. Apologies are a start, but actions are what truly matter. I hope this experience helps you, and others, reconsider how you approach situations like this in the future." Emily nodded, her expression one of genuine remorse. The events of that day didn't just stay within the confines of the lounge. Word of Charlotte's experience and her poised response quickly spread, both within the airline industry and beyond. Social media lit up with stories of similar encounters, with people from all walks of life sharing their own experiences of being underestimated or judged based on appearances. Charlotte's story became a rallying cry for change, inspiring others to speak out and demand better. The airline's swift commitment to addressing systemic issues set an example for other companies to follow, proving that progress was possible when people in positions of power chose to act with integrity and purpose. For Charlotte, the moment was both personal and universal. It was a reminder of how far she had come and how much further society still had to go. But it was also proof that courage and perseverance could pave the way for a better, more inclusive future. Charlotte Bennett's story is more than just an account of one woman's strength and resilience. It's a powerful reminder that standing up for what's right can spark change far beyond the moment. Her courage didn't just transform the culture of one airline. It inspired countless others to question their own biases and push for equality in their own lives and communities. What's your takeaway from Charlotte's journey? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If this story moved you, don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel for more powerful tales. Together, we can continue to shine a light on stories that inspire change and make the world a better place. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.